Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Hockey Picks and Bets show presented by Prize Picks here on the Mayo Media Network. I am Matt Moody, joined by DJ Mitchell to go through Tuesday, March 23rd's NHL slate. DJ, how you doing here? We have 5 games ahead of us on Tuesday. So how's your weekend? How's your Monday?
The weekend was very good besides the bodies, but we're not going to talk about that right now. I decided that I was going to wear a jersey for the last time the Buffalo Sabres won a hockey game. So I went with a jersey from, I believe they last wore in 2003. They're great too. So sports are going well. I basically took the entire weekend off from any gambling. And it felt nice. Little refresh, little reboot. Yeah, I think it was well needed, well deserved. And I totally was shocked when I saw only 5 games for Tuesday, but there are 5 games. There are 5 fun games. I'm very excited about a couple of them. I think there's a lot of different different angles to take on this. So I'm excited to get after this one. But how are you doing, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing well. We're not racing against the clock on this one. Obviously, it's nice to see you after Thursday's technical mishaps.
I forgot about that. We just talked about it too. I didn't even think it was anything.
Yeah, no, I mean,
we recorded. Like I was here.
Happens.
I did the episode. It wasn't that I didn't do it. Like,
you know what it was? DJ got stalled in some contract negotiations, but we got them sorted out. He's back on the show, so we got his jerseys. We're in full.
The Sabres tried to take me on as their new head coach, and I just wasn't ready to commit yet. I feel like that's too much of a mess for me to take on. Fair. So I decided to pass for now.
Right. But yeah, so we have 5 games here to go over on Tuesday. So before we do that, I do want to talk to you about Prize Picks. They are the title sponsor of this show. With March Madness going on, there's lots of things that you can, just play Prize Picks with right now. So NHL, NBA, obviously college basketball. There's even, the golf match play. I'm interested to see if they do stuff there. Esports. So what you do is you go on over to prizepicks.com. You sign up using the promo code MMN, as in Mayo Media Network. And what you do once you get there, you can pick up to 5 players for your entries. And again, you can do these across all the different sports. So if you like, say, the over on a LeBron James fantasy, or actually LeBron's hurt, but Karl Anthony Towns, that sort of thing. You can pick the over on him, and you could do the over on, say, on Nathan McKinnon on Tuesday. So you make your entries using that format. In the NHL, you get 3 points for a goal, you get 2 points for an assist, and you get a half point for a blocked shot and a shot on goal. So it's very straightforward. It's super simple. And there's a lot of upside going up to 10x your entry when you enter. So when you sign up using promo code MMN, you can get up to a $100 match deposit bonus. So make sure you do that. Let them know we sent you, and have yourself a good time on Prize Picks. And check out our Twitter on Tuesday just to see where we're, who our favorite 2 plays of the day are to get you started. So DJ, anything else you wanted to talk about before we got into Tuesday's 5 games here? I know you've been itching to talk about the LSU, suffocating defense, but save that for another show.
Yeah, it's just March sadness for me this year. So, it was honestly just one, I guess, note was, it was like everything that couldn't happen happened. Like, we can't let Thomas go off, the freshman phenom for LSU. He went crazy, and our stars just couldn't hit a 3. Like, Bonaventure kind of lived and died by the 3-point shot, just was not there. I mean, they made, I believe, 0 in the first half. Can't have it. So, tough break. We move on. Forward thinking, 5 games. Starts off with New Jersey at the Flyers. Flyers on a back-to-back. So that definitely makes it a little bit unique. It's a 6 over/under. I mean, I'm slightly leaning towards the under here. I guess your worry is the goaltending. If Carter Hart's in net, or it doesn't really matter who's in net. Philly's just been giving up a bit against. I'm not very strong on it, but I definitely would lean slightly towards the Flyers. But I'm probably not going to bet either of the Lions here. I just think it's pretty much a toss-up. And with the over or the under, I think that's slightly favored in my eyes. I think New Jersey actually has been pretty good at shutting down defensively. They really put the Shrangovich line out there and stifled Crosby and his line mates, which was, all they needed to do against the Penguins with Malkin out. So I think that they have a decent setup right now. They're not good, but I don't think they're completely inept, the Devils. So it's kind of where my head's at right now, the basic level.
Yeah, so I think I'm on the Flyers side here, and here's the reason. I know it's a back-to-back, and of course you don't love targeting teams straight off the back-to-back, but one, they played a really good game against the Islanders. Like you were worried about their defense or whatever. They actually did. They came out, and I think at one point in the game they're up like 32-13 in shots, and the Islanders did end up, I believe, tying the game and then winning in overtime. But you did see some territorial dominance out of Philly, and then secondly, the most obvious thing on the schedule is the fact that Philly, is on a back-to-back. But the Devils here, they played they played both Saturday and Sunday. So right there, that's a 3-4. That's definitely a schedule type loss when you compare that to a team that's well rested. And also they're playing their fourth game in 6 days as well. So it's not like the schedule is, basically in favor of the Devils here. I think that makes it about even. And when you look at all things considered, I just think that the Flyers are a better team. They showed me enough on Monday night that I'm willing to ride it. And I think you are getting a lot of that uncertainty on the Flyers priced into this line at just minus 159. So I'm jumping on that while I can. I don't think I'm going like puck line or anything, but I do think this is a low scoring tight game. So I'll lean the under too.
Yeah, I feel like everything you said is like, if you are on Hockey Viz and follow Michael Blake McCurdy in general, he calls these kind of sludge games, if you will, when teams are kind of on back-to-backs and are very or just not rested. And I think it does kind of set up to be one of those kind of sludge games that just don't end up getting there. So I definitely like the under more than anything else. And the way I'm looking at this, especially from a DFS perspective, is probably not a complete fade because I think there's some value here and you're going to need it. I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anyone, and we'll get there. Colorado one's going to be really high owned. Cale Makar is going to be very, sought after, and getting a cheaper correlation with like a Smith, Zaka, what's his name? Palmieri. There it is. I think could be like a way to get contrarian with Colorado one. So I think there's some narrative to that there, but I'm not going to be overboard on it. I'm not sure if Ty Smith is a solo play in his own. Other than that, in this game, it's not it's not a dead stay away because there's value. I think there's even more value on the Philly side. So I kind of wanted to pass it over to you on that angle.
So like you said, I do think you're using a lot of these games, and from a DFS standpoint, to figure out how can I fit in Colorado one, because, McKinnon, Landeskog, Rantanen are really, really good, and they're really, really expensive. So one of the cheap ways you can actually go about this is on the Flyers side. You get Jake Voracek at 4,100. He's sort of like the featured guy that, I did want to point out, because I do think he's playing a really good brand of hockey at the moment and just is too cheap at 4,100 over on DraftKings. But you're getting his line of Claude Giroux, 5,300, and Oscar Lindblom, 2,600 at just super low prices. And I don't think they'll be very popular either. Like, obviously they'll have some ownership with only 5 games, but there's actually a lot of ways to fit in this Colorado stack. So I sort of think that if you're looking for a secondary stack to go with that, this Voracek makes a lot of sense. So, on the year, Voracek has 5 goals and 17 assists. Like, you're sort of look at him and you think, well, maybe he's having a down year. That's why he's priced so cheap. But, he's not really. He's 22 points in 26 games. Like, that's pretty good. He's got a great matchup. I just don't get why he's so cheap at this point in time. And I do think that, there's a big ceiling game in there for him. And this is certainly the chance that I want to, maybe capitalize on that. Some of his line mates as well. So anything else from this game?
Yeah, I just piggybacking on Voracek, plus 310 to score at any time seems pretty enticing. Like I mentioned, Stringovich has kind of been that Stringovich unit, I should say, with Zaka and Kukanen or Kokokanen, I don't know, whatever you want to say. I honestly do not know. Has been the shutdown line, and I really think they'll probably match up against Couturier.
Kawakinen, Sharon Govich.
It's Stringovich. Let's not kid ourselves.
All right, you got it, DJ. You're up.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, the goal props in this game, if you do think the over hits, they are kind of interesting. Just a guy who
plus 200 is the worst, or
yeah.
Will.
Yeah, there's no Pasternak walking through that door at minus 115 or whatever. So there is some value, if you do think there are goals here. My favorite is probably that Voracek number, but if you're looking for a longer shot, Nick Merkley, had a bunch of shots over the weekend. He's got some talent. He's like a 23-year-old, but he was playing with like Miles Wood. So, there's some offensive potential there, just plus 525 for a guy who showed any bit of a pulse. I think is, one of the better guys as far as like a long shot on the slate. And then Ty Smith, like you mentioned on the power play there, plus 700. Like it could happen. So I don't think that's terrible either. But anyway, let's move on from there to our next game.
Yeah, the only 7 o'clock game is one we got to, and then there's 2 8 o'clocks, and we'll start with Florida at Chicago. I would say, one of the featured games, as we mentioned. I think Colorado want to be very popular, but this is the only 6.5 on the entire slate. I like the 6.5. I think it's pretty strong. I'm not sure if I'm going to get all over the over on it. Bobrovsky hasn't been terrible. I believe he's slated to start, if I recall correctly. He hasn't been great either. Yeah, he should. I think it's going to be one of those games where Patrick Kane gets back on the point sheet. He has had 2 games in a row without a point. That is probably the only time that's happened all year. I mean, I'm not going to run through his game logs, but he is just not a guy you're going to keep up the point sheet forever. Chicago kind of, I don't know if I want to say threw their lines completely in a blender all game, but kind of did. They just kind of moved things around and kept players out. But Patrick Kane's going to find the ice a whole heck of a lot. So with all of that being said off the start, what do you think about this game? Florida only a minus 148 on the road to Chicago. Vegas still respecting Chicago a good bit. Are you in on this Florida side? Are you on the over-under? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I don't get it. This seems, Florida's just playing so well right now. Like, yeah, they're coming off of a loss to Tampa, but that's going to happen.
Tampa, are you saying?
Right, that is exactly what I'm saying. So, okay. That just happens. I'm not reading too much into that at all. But just the underlying numbers are there for Florida. You mentioned Bobrovsky had struggled. He's actually been a little bit better as of late. So, maybe you can salvage some of that, just monstrosity of a contract. But, if you can get hot down the stretch, I certainly can see these guys making a run through Carolina, and obviously Tampa's a tougher sell, but Barkov is just playing so well at this point. And I guess that's sort of where I'm going with this game. It's just, I want to ride Alexander Barkov. Like he's very sort of unique in the sense where we talk about Nate McKinnon, who it's going to be. It's going to be Landeskog and it's going to be Rantanen. Like that's sort of the way it works in Colorado. With Barkov, it can literally be anybody on that team, if he has a ceiling night. So I don't really think you can dilly-dally around. I don't think you can get cute and say I'm going to play Duclair just in case Barkov smashes, because we don't know what their lines are going to look like from a day-to-day basis. And if you want to get a part of Barkov's 37 points so far this season, I think you just got to pay up for himself. So I do like his shot prop. When you get that, it'll be very, very attackable, I believe, just because so much of the offense currently goes through him. And if you're looking for some deeper, maybe this becomes more popular once it's confirmed. But I think we might get Mason Marchment back on that top line in Duclair's place. Verhaeghe seems to be a staple there on that top line. But the thing I really like about Marchment is that even if he's not with the top line, quote unquote, to start the game, he is getting second power play time. So there's obviously the chance that he's super low owned if he's not with Barkov. But he could get there throughout the game, which obviously you want, and he's going to be a low-owned, cheap option with upside. They get there even without Barkov on that second power play unit. So I just think that there's a lot to like there. He's still mispriced, to score a goal at plus 460. It just doesn't really make much sense to me. If there's even a chance that he could sniff the ice that Barkov's skating on, why he would be, not plus 330 or so. So I just think there's a lot of value in that line. But anything else in this game that that you're looking at? I know you mentioned Kane a bit, but any of his teammates?
I think that the interesting note from the last game more than anything was that Hagel was on the top power play. Also Kubalik kind of mixed in. I'm really hoping Dylan Strome finds his way back up there personally, because I think that would be just a safer way of doing things. But if we don't get any confirmation, Hagel is a really decent, cheap option playing with Camp and Kubalik. Camp actually had some time with the top line, I believe, but it's been a mess. I mean, honestly, I'm not going to get carried away with this. I think this game, basically the way I'm constructing DFS, let's, talk a little more DFS than normal is, I'm planning on having a couple lineups that are going to have 4 guys from this game and maybe fading the expensive Colorado, just because I think this game has the potential to be a big explosion. So getting, Patrick Kane and maybe Boakfist, and then on the other end having like Barkov, Hornqvist, and maybe not even Huberdeau, Hornqvist, or something like that, and Ekblad. Ekblad is probably a staple with any of those stacks. Is going to be the way I attack a few different lineups, because if this game goes for 7 or 8 goals and Colorado won duds, like that wins the GPP. So that's why I'm looking at it. And then in just general lines, I'm going to have probably every prop bet or any parlay I have is probably the Barkov over on the shots at 2.5. So
yeah,
it just seems easy.
Yeah, just this game's the only 6.5 that we have, and I'm honestly tempted to bet the over here. So that should tell you something about the environment. Just projected versus these other games. Like these other games are kind of, very, very slow. The only 6 we talked about, New Jersey, Philly, might be more of a sludge match, based on the schedule. So I think that I do like a lot of pieces in this game. I'll just mention one more. I love Dylan Strome, taking shots on him, returning to his, basic top power play with Patrick Kane and maybe even that top line at some point. He came back his first game. He had 4 shots and a goal. So I do like sort of continuing to go to him at sub 3K on DraftKings. But Adam Boakfist, he's continued to run this top power play for Chicago. Last game, he got up to 22 minutes. Like he is playing a regular 5-on-5 shift now. We're seeing him, get better in the underlying numbers, especially in his defensive end. And I think the coaching staff's, taking note of that. The Chicago's playing well. Boakfist has been a big part of it. And I think that there is still a lot of offensive potential there, where he could, break this sort of slate wide open if only 5 games. He's got the perfect opportunity to do so playing with Kane and DeBrincat. So he's just mispriced. You're not going to find many player props on him exactly. But just as far as DFS goes, I think he's a great guy and certainly a player to keep in mind going forward. Because if he's sort of the top end options on the defensive end for Chicago, they could be a lot better than expected in a hurry because, they sorely need that. So very excited about him. But anyway, let's get over to the next game.
All right. So that will bring us to the other game at 8, Detroit at Nashville in the battle for the bottom of the Central. Is it the Central? Yeah, it's Central. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know why it just feels weird because that's like all the conferences are weird. But anyways, though, yeah. So battle of the bottom of the Central. What are your thoughts on this thing I made up right now?
It's only been 2 months. It's not.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't feel like it's just because the weather's getting nice. I feel like the season's about to end, and we have like 30 games left.
To be fair, you're a Buffalo Sabres fan, so the season's already over.
The season's always over by March when you're a Sabres fan, and this year is no different. But Nashville minus 139. I guess let's start right there. It's seemingly too easy to not try to get it on. Detroit's bad. Nashville is also bad, but are they as bad as Detroit? No. Over under, I'm probably just not touching. I probably slightly lean to the over because I think that there's enough goal scorers on both sides. Like if Dylan Larkin has a big game, which I kind of do like him, and I kind of like his shot props and stuff. To get a couple points in there, Nashville I think can score. But on the Nashville side, it's Tolvanen's team at this point. It feels like he's decided it's now his time to shine. Even though his goal wasn't the prettiest a couple nights ago, he's still really, really good. Still plus 280, just, not terrible, but he is getting the ice time. He's making it happen out there. It's the top line, Tolvanen, Johansson, and Forsberg. He's on the top power play. What more do you need from the guy, to play him, especially at 3,900 on DraftKings? Like, give me a break.
He's easily my favorite play from this game. If you ask me to pick a side, I'm definitely going with the Nashville side of things. But I don't know. I don't know if I like, something like Tolvanen to score more, because I do think that's a better value, but I also don't know if I'm willing to sort of take on the obviously uncertainty that comes with goal scoring versus like points. And of course, we're likely not going to get that with Tolvanen unless something crazy happens. It's usually just Forsberg and, his friends. So I don't expect we see that even on other sites, but maybe. In any case, this Nashville power play, we've talked about it, and it continues to succeed. We saw even Ryan freaking Johansson score a goal on Sunday on that top power play. So they're playing well.
I heard he had a shootout goal too.
don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
You know exactly where the offense is coming from though with Nashville, which is usually not a thing that we sort of feel good about because of the number of defensemen and everything else. But they're so banged up right now. They have a top line that's playing really well and is together on the power play. So I kind of am digging this like Matthias Ekholm, Eli Tolvanen type, builds DFS. And it makes me, I think, like the Nashville money line a lot more. Minus 140 just doesn't quite seem right. Because even adjusted for matchup recently, like Nashville's been playing just okay. And that's a lot better than Detroit has. And so at home, all these different things, I just don't really see, Nashville blowing this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's pretty fair. Other than that, I definitely am going to consider a couple of these Nashville props. What I can get for a Forsberg point might come into play, or his shot prop. I mean, he's been a pretty solid Corsi player all year. I think this matchup bodes well for him as well. Like I said, I like Larkin on the other end. I do think I'm going to end up playing it because I think you're going to get a really, really low owned Larkin against a very bad defensive Nashville team. So I'm going to end up probably putting something on that as well in DFS just because.
Forsberg's been a little underwhelming lately, and I think some of that honestly has to do with the emergence of Tolvanen, just sort of, because Forsberg's just as gifted a playmaker as he is a shooter, I think. So maybe there's some of that going on. Maybe there's just some general, malaise overcoming Nashville. But, I certainly don't hate anything to do with Nashville here. So over under 5.5. Where do you stand on that? Do you have a lean?
No, I don't. I'm not going to play it. There's just no way. I mean, I think if I had to like gun to head, I'd say over, but it's just because I think the goaltending is actually that bad.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I've slightly leaned the over here too. So, all right, let's go from there over to Tampa at Dallas. So Tampa minus 155 road favorite, total 5.5. I don't know. Like Tampa's is just a really, really damn good team. The thing that's so tough with Nashville when you're betting sides is that you honestly sort of need to wait until 20 minutes. Sorry, yes, Dallas. You need to wait 20 minutes before the game to even know, like, are two of their best players even playing? Because Rupe Hintz has just been, in and out and in and out. And then Radulov, got added to the injury report last game. He came back from an injury, played a couple, is out again. So we literally don't know what, 20% of their like top six looks like at this point. Like it's just a mess. So what do you do with that? And I guess any players that you like to sort of avoid that uncertainty?
I mean, the hardest part about this slate is, if you make the decision to play Colorado 1, there could be a ton of value in these Dallas guys. And I know it's really hard to play it against potentially Vasilevsky. We don't have, I don't think, any confirmation on that yet. Vasilevsky played on Saturday. You assume he is most likely going to start, but if McElhinney is in, McElhinney has an .880 save percentage and has been actually pretty freaking terrible. He's like the only reason Tampa isn't like undefeated on the year. So, and that changes it up a lot too. So my honest opinion with all that variance that you talked about, I'm probably not touching either of these sides because even though I like Tampa a good bit, and I know that it could definitely sway one way or another depending on this news, without knowing it, I just don't like to make bets that way. It's just not how I do it. Like, I know you might be saying like, well, you could get a better odd on this and then get the right, like, yeah, but it's just like, I don't trust it. I don't trust any of it. I'd rather go with things that the math are leading me to than like my view on these injuries that I don't understand or know. Because Rupe Hintz is like in one game and scores a goal and then out the next. Like, what's going on? Like, obviously there's more to the story. What we do know is from Tampa's last game is that they kind of changed up a lot and they won 5-3. Killorn was with Stamkos and Point on the first line. Point and Killorn scored. They also all correlate in the power play. So, and more to what you were saying, and if you can get this bet, we talked about this a little bit in the Morning Skate pod, Palat moves off of that line and with Tyler Johnson and Anthony Cirelli, but that kind of puts him in the perfect, like, he's going to shoot the puck scenario. They seemingly have moved his goal odds way down to plus 245. So I know you kind of like that as well. sometimes it's not about saying, well, this guy's off that first line, he must be just dust now. Like Palat could still very well score on that power play or on that second line with two, good playmakers like Cirelli and Johnson would be all-stars on the Sabres. Let's just put that into perspective. Like they would be all of their minutes. They'd just be like, we can't take them off the ice. So yeah. I mean, I think that there's a couple different like bets to get a little bit like have more fun with than like say, oh, I'm going to, hope that, Vasilevsky starts and Tampa's a way better favorite than the odds are saying.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Just as a rule, I like player props more. I do think we're safe to see a Vasi start because we did see McElhinney on Sunday. So, that right. Okay. Seems pretty safe to me. I also looked at their schedule. They have basically Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, or Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday coming up. So maybe we see Vasi run off, 6 straight games in that. We've seen it before, obviously. And he's pretty been good. Great. So that makes me lean toward this Tampa side. And like you mentioned with Palat, yeah, that's exactly the sort of mindset I have. It's like, yeah, maybe the on-ice offense goes down slightly at 5-on-5 just in general. But when you look at percentage of offense used, well, you get Braden Point off of there. He's obviously a good goal scorer, a good shooter. And you add, Anthony Cirelli and Tyler Johnson, two dudes who just, like you said, are good players that don't shoot a ton themselves. We know Palat's a trigger man. He has that potential, and I'm certainly, willing to ride it in this matchup when I can basically play him as a one-off and not feel like I'm going to lose out, say, if he scores 2 goals and Braden Point needs to be in there, and then there you go. There goes all your salary.
Yeah.
But yeah, my favorite bet in this game is that Palat over on the shot prop. I just think you're getting a really good spot for him to hit the over on shots, even if he doesn't have like a great offensive output. Because of the situation that his line will put him in, and because he's a trigger man on that power play still. Like that hasn't changed. So that's the way I think I'm going with this one. But absolutely stack up that Tampa first line if you're mass multi-entering, because they're power play correlated. They're very good, and they definitely give you some leverage off of very popular Colorado. So
yeah. I think last thing from this game is you really, if you're playing any Dallas, you have to be on checking because, also Faxa got hurt. So that gave a ton. I said it right this time. So don't laugh. So with him going down in the last game, we saw Robertson with 21 minutes, Dickinson with 21 minutes, Pavelski 21 minutes, Gurionov 19 minutes, and Ben 18 minutes. Really high concentration of minutes for those guys. There's a ton of value in 3 of those guys I mentioned. Really 4. I think Gurionov actually has a pretty good amount of value. So that Gurionov, Dickinson, Robertson line got a ton of run.
I thought you were going to say Jamie Benn, and I was going to walk off this podcast. I was just going to get up, leave the chair spinning.
Come on.
Just like
I would never do that to you. But getting back to what I was saying, it's incredibly cheap. So if you are trying to get contrarian, I think you have to get that contrarian to play a couple of those pieces there and feel okay about it with a Colorado 1 or a onslaught of that Florida Chicago game, like I mentioned. It's not again like Tampa could give up 2 or 3 goals without a doubt. There's no doubt in my mind that could happen, and all of a sudden you're sitting on a pile of money, and no one's going to have any of these cheap Dallas guys. And that again, barring Radek, Baxa, and Rube Hintz are out.
Yeah, which we
and Radulov, the third guy. They're just the 3.
Yeah, any combination of those guys obviously helps. So just keep an eye. Maybe we get morning skate news, but it's been tough lately to get that information before morning skate.
Honestly,
before
beat reporters are good. It's not the beat reporters' fault. I would say that, like when we talk about like Edmonton and stuff, it's literally just a lack of them putting out information. Like the Dallas guys put out everything, and they don't know. Like the coaches like, oh hey, by the way, like, to my opponent, like, let me let you know exactly, like, it's part of what they're trying to do. It's not working, obviously. Like, they should just, I guess, tell them because they're still losing anyways. But
I don't know. Anyway, so we can move on from that game, I think, to our last game of the night. We do have Colorado playing Arizona, second leg of a back-to-back there. So it seems like Colorado is going to take home a pretty easy W. I can't say so. Obviously, we're recording this in the future because you're listening to this on Tuesday and we're recording this Monday night. But regardless of what happens, Nathan MacKinnon is very, very good at professional ice hockey and should be treated as such. So, minus 210 here for Colorado. The way that they've played, I mean, I don't know how long we need to spend talking about that Minnesota series for Colorado, but oh my God, was that impressive. So I just sort of think that, this is a spot where maybe you don't want to play the puck line because back to back, you never really know. But if I'm playing a puck line, I think this is it tonight. Plus 123, minus 1.5 for Colorado just seems really solid. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? What is your thought on the over-under here, and anything else you had to say?
I mean, 5.5. I guess I slightly like the over just because I think Colorado could go nuclear in this game and just be absolutely world beating. But I'm not very high on it. I probably won't take it myself. I do kind of like the Colorado side in general. I think that more to the player props. Everything that Jacob Chychrun does is magic. Fourth in defenseman in scoring goals. I don't know what he is in points. He has a lot. He's like freaking 14th, tied for 14th in points. So he's really, really good. He's plus 400 to score. I'm probably not going to take that, honestly. Like it's not bad. He is, even as of late, becoming better and better. But if you could get his shot prop or his blocks, honestly, if you get like over 1.5 on blocks or something like that, like he is just not leaving the ice and just like, I think he's playing DFS and playing himself every night because he's just like, how can I hit all of the bonuses as soon as possible? Like I mentioned in the Morning Skate podcast, like him and Ekblad are my top two defensemen. I'm going to have him a lot. And I might, like the way I'm looking at this game in general, if you're playing Colorado 1, if you're playing Colorado 2, you should have a little bit of Arizona coming back because when they, steamroll a team, they just kind of don't play those guys as much. They kind of like run 4 lines and kind of get a bit defensive. So I'm thinking if I am stacking up on Colorado, and I don't know how much I'm going to have because I kind of like the under here a little bit. I'm not super high on, Arizona to score too much, but if I do decide, I'm going to make one lineup with Colorado 1 or 2, I'm going to be stacking up on, Keller maybe and Chychrun.
Yeah. I talked about it, I believe, on Thursday night, the Chychrun Nick Schmaltz power play stack, and it kind of worked. Chychrun has been just a boss lately, though. He's definitely a guy when we talk about, block shot props. I know you can get those over on FanDuel, and I'm sure other books also have them. This matchup is the absolute perfect spot. I ran some, basically I just took off of Natural Stat Trick, like all the different matchups. So like I took how many shots a team gets blocked that they take that are blocked. And unsurprisingly, the top 2 teams in the league at turning, shots into block shots for the opposition are Colorado and Vegas, 2 teams that shoot from distance and they're dominant territorially. Arizona is also not dominant territorially. So you'll definitely see good value on a Jacob Chychrun block shot prop, probably in my opinion.
Coyotes are, ironically.
Very, very, very good.
That's why they come into the show. That's why they come in.
No, that's good. I appreciate your effort there, DJ. That was a good one.
I had to do it.
So anyway, enough about Chychrun. I think you also mentioned the game stack point being a very good one. On this Colorado side, the shot props on McKinnon and Rantanen probably going to be my 2 favorite bets here.
Yeah.
But kind of into this Cale Makar gold prop at plus 320 because he's been buzzing. And, you watch these guys play and they literally look like the Harlem Globetrotters on some shifts. And it's almost like he's a 4th forward. And that's sort of why I like it, because you're talking the first line is plus 118, plus 155, plus 215 to score a goal. And you regularly see Cale Makar switch positions, moving around a bit, and also, shooting on the power play. Like that's certainly a thing. Plus 320 for Cale Makar, it's kind of enticing. And that goes very well with his super duper cheap DFS price. So that just might be a guy that I want to be really high on.
All right. Let's just say it. Highest owned player of the night. Is it McKinnon and then Makar?
I bet it's Makar over McKinnon, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Right in that range. I mean,
because Barkov could steal a little bit. but Makar
Yeah.
is just so obvious. I think. Maybe I'm
Yeah, I
wrong,
think so
but
too. Well, I don't know. I really think that, especially just if you can get it, I think it won't be on DraftKings, it'll be on FanDuel. But the Makar, if it's a half a point over and that's positive money in any capacity, I probably jam some money in on that as well. It just seems pretty easy.
Yeah.
For him to get a point.
They're so good. I mean, I don't even like. We can talk about depth guys in Colorado too, because they're. I mean, the second line is still really good. You were even talking about a little Tyson Jost. Give me your Jost spiel, your elevator pitch, let's say.
I think it's, first off, this has cooled off a little bit from last year. It's still good though. Basically the way I'm looking at this is Valeri Nichushkin last year at least, and this year in some respects, kind of became a bit of an analytical darling. His defensive metrics were just through the roof. Like if you look at RAM charts and Follow Any Charting Hockey or Evolving Wild, he was just on another level that like people had never seen. They're like, how is this guy possibly not getting any votes for the Selke or whatever it is? He's playing with Donskoy and Jost, which I think is the problem with Jost is that he doesn't play power play, but he is really a pretty high rate shooter. Just talking to yourself, I mean, in that Colorado Minnesota 6-goal game, Tushkin and Jost scored. I haven't been too high in it. I've had Jost a couple times in my lineups because I do think his rate shooting is good enough to where if he sees a few more minutes, it definitely could work out. He also plays penalty kill time, so he has some blocks, some shots. I don't think of him as much of a double bonus guy, but if he has 2 blocks, 4 or 5 shots, and a goal, he could break the slate at 2,600. So I think if you're not playing Colorado 1 and you think this game is kind of a sludge match, defensive battle, that is their defensive line. Which I'm excited to see what the Hockey Viz looks like for the matchup against Arizona, because maybe they are going to try to use them a bit more against that top unit. Which would make some sense, although probably isn't going to be. I think they're going to get Kadri out against McKinnon. Oh my God, Kadri plays with McKinnon. I'm going the wrong way about this. Jost against the top line in Arizona. They probably not even do that. I'm like,
anyway,
they have a top line. Look, they have a top line, but
you gave a good pitch. Solid
you get
B,
what I'm saying.
Solid B on that, because it started out hot.
I fell off. I was thinking like Jost. I don't know why I had this like envisionment, like, oh yeah, top line in Arizona, then you just shut down. I'm like, wait, what does that even mean?
Anyway, that's your sort of conviction sprinkle. If you're playing 10 lineups, sprinkle in some Tyson. It'll make your lineups look and smell a little bit better. I don't hate it. 25 shots in his last 10 games. He's been good. Obviously, you're not finding a shot prop or whatever on him, but these are the sort of sleepers. Honestly, if you're playing a seasonal league, I don't know if Tyson Jost is the sort of guy I would pick up. If only 5 games and you need to fill a spot, maybe some deep leagues, he could be worth a flyer there too, because there's not a ton of like obvious guys that I think like, oh, they're just not going to be owned. So, maybe that's something we don't talk about much, but maybe we can get Chris Meany on board with the Tyson Jost 1 game pickup sort of deal. But all right, anything else before we recap our favorite bets and some DFS stacks?
No, probably not. Yeah, right. I kind of fell off a wagon there at the end there. I'm trying to like put my thoughts back together.
Yeah, no, I love the RAM charts, whatever you want to call them. You had some good stuff there. You had some good stuff.
Right. I think it's I've like talked myself into it enough at this point where like I'm just in a circle. But let's get to our favorite bets. And I mean, if you want to start.
All right. If you have 2 bets on this slate who are not Brady Tkachuk and Matt Zuccarello shot props, what are you picking?
Okay. I'm taking, what was it? The Barkov over on shots, no matter what it is. I think it could be 2.5. Even if it's like 3.5, I'd probably still like consider it at really good odds. But if it's 2.5, definitely. And then, I just like the Florida side in general. That's a good second one. But so I can parlay this in some capacity. It's hard to know because we still don't have all the DraftKings props, which is really freaking frustrating. I'll go with the Rantanen shots too, Barkov and or the Florida line in general. I think they're all going to work. Kind of, it's going to come down to like what exactly these lines end up being when I put my bet in.
Okay. I like those 2 lines a lot. So I think you live. I think you might survive, this one if it's gun to head sort of thing. For mine, I'm going to get a little bit out there because I do think that I just like these two sort of combined. Are Andre Palat and Eeli Tolvanen, goal scorer. Just like, you can find the Palat shots, sure, go for it. But I think that there's a lot of value on the goal for both those guys. And if you parlay them together, you get a nice little multiplier. You're not looking, you're not going 10 legs or anything. You're just going a couple legs. And I think that this one has some legs to get you some money here on Tuesday night. So let's do those two. So,
okay.
All right.
And then we'll go over
DFS.
DraftKings. Yeah.
It's
DFS.
real easy.
It's
real freaking easy. You play these top line Colorado guys or you don't. If you don't, you can do whatever the heck you want. So let's say you aren't playing these Colorado guys and then you're not going into the trash bin to try and, pick up these sort of cheap guys. You have one stack and you're trying to win it without Colorado in your lineup. Where are you spending that extra money? What are you doing to be a little bit different here?
You got one stack, one opportunity. I mean, it's Florida for sure. I think it's not even that difficult for me. How it ends up working out exactly, I mean, it's either you get with that Barkov action. I think Barkov Ekblad just in general is a nice 2-man unit, and maybe you could throw in Verhaeghe. I'm not willing to play Russian roulette with who that third line mate is. I did kind of like what you said about Marchment and being kind of like, well, even if he might still get there on his own, but whatever. I definitely lean more and I play more Huberdeau, Hornqvist, what's his name, Ekblad. But I know you're not as big of a fan of that, so. That's where the money's at for me, though.
I love Hornqvist, not Huberdeau. Get Huberdeau off my screen. Just get rid of him.
Get that 8-shot on goal game, and it's just like hilarious when I look at his 10-game metrics. I'm like, oh, there it is. Like,
I'm just gonna email my DK rep and just tell him to get all Jonathan Huberdeau props and whatever his price is. Just get him off. Like, I don't want to see them. So anyway, I like that. Florida definitely a lot of upside. 6.5 over under. I'm gonna get a little bit. I don't know how spicy this is, but I'm going to spend the money on Philip Forsberg for a stack. And it doesn't feel good to pay $7,700 for Philip Forsberg when he's coming in without a ton of shots, so on. It seems like Tolvanen sort of taken a bit, but you get Forsberg at maybe the lowest owned he will ever be on a 5-game slate against Detroit. I'm just going with that. So give me Forsberg, give me Tolvanen, and then give me Mattias Ekholm because those three guys are just playing. They're playing well on the power play. Tolvanen or Ekholm finally on that top unit. They've got a ton of peripheral upside, especially Ekholm, and they're just a nice mid-tier stack. You can play them with basically any other stack and feel really good about your lineup. Get those high one-off pieces like a Chychrun who have really high floors and high overall projections. And pick some Hornqvist or whatever, get some goals, really good team. You're basically just hoping that Colorado fails. So, and if you want to hear about some of the really cheap ways, we're going to, jam in those Colorado guys to our other lineups.
Yep.
Be sure to check out the Morning Skate podcast because we did go over a lot of value, in addition to what we talked about here. And it's just a nice little slate to have all 5 games sort of covered, ready to go. And make some winning lineups. So DJ, anything else before we get out of here?
No, I do like what you're saying. I mean, the one thing that I kind of live by is I almost always have a lineup where I stack up against Detroit. So it's a winning formula. Like they can give up a touchdown on any night. So I do like that a lot. Other than that, definitely check out the Morning Skate podcast. Check out Prize Picks. If you are lucky enough to be in a state where you can play it, you should definitely get involved. It's very enjoyable. I think that, I think it's a great idea. Honestly, it makes it easy. It's something that I think if you put in a lot of time and effort and you're already doing all this other stuff and you're listening to this podcast, you are probably doing yourself a disservice by not getting over there and taking all this information that you're bringing together and not using it to your advantage there. I would definitely check it out. At least give it a try, get the match bonus and use MMN.
Yeah. All right. So you can find me on Twitter. I am at Fake Moods. You can find DJ at DJ_Mitchell94. And you can find the Mayo Media Network at Mayo Media Net. So be sure to like this video if you're watching on YouTube. Be sure to give us a review over on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you listen to the podcasts. And, reach out to us if you have any comments or feedback or anything like that. We'd love to hear from you. All that said, good luck on Tuesday, and we will see you.